called. Please hang up and try again.
Hey, I'm Madeline Butini, the host of 1-800-MAD-BUTT. I'm a visual artist from Australia on a conversational journey to call up and talk with the best artists, entrepreneurs, and visionaries of our time. Join myself and my guests as we unravel the stories behind their breathtaking creations and groundbreaking businesses. Make sure to check out our Instagram for extra show notes. You can view it at 1-800-MAD-BUTT. All right, cool. Let's get into it. Hey, Michelle, how are you going?
I'm good. Lovely to meet you in person, in Zoom, see your face.
Yes, in partial IRL.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on my podcast today and talking with me. I have some questions set up for you if you're ready to get into it.
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Okay, amazing. So this is the question that I ask everybody. It is, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, my name is Michelle Plastrier. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I really like to just keep that multidisciplinary in there because I don't want to be put into a box. But I have a heavy focus on hand-built ceramics. I would say that would be what my kind of niche medium is. But I also do murals. I would count workshops and community engagements as part of my practice as well. And, at the moment, I'm even creating like an entryway archway for a community event. So, quite broad, I think, is a lot of the things that I do. But they're kind of all tied together either through like color, pattern, or theme.
I love this. For ages, I was just like, I'm just going to be a collage artist and this is what I'm going to do. And so for you to be like, hey, I don't want to be put into a box. I really love that. I think that's really important. And I think it's really important for other artists to kind of hear that you don't have to be one thing the whole time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, get into art for different reasons. And some people might be because they want to do a real deep dive on one particular topic, theme, or material. But for me, I think it was definitely the freedom, the kind of, it was more of an opening of a world rather than career pathway. There's a lot more interaction and communication between emerging and, mid-career, and there's a lot more support financially, and mentor-wise. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Nice. I love this. Okay. So how did you get into creating? Have you been creative your whole life? Were you at school and you were like, you know what, I want to be an artist? How did that all work out for you?
Definitely. I've always been creative. Definitely wasn't I'm going to be an artist. I honestly didn't even think that was a career option that would be realistic for me. And I think I didn't come from a family that had money and that could bankroll me if let me just see how this goes. So for me it was leaving school and finding a job and finding a way to sustain life. And then I actually went to uni and studied graphic design, and I did at Queensland College of Art on the Gold Coast, which I did some fine art subjects within that and ended up dropping out for a myriad of reasons. But I did graphic design, so I was like, that'll be where the actual work is at. And also after graduating from that, found that that also wasn't exactly where the work was at. So, but I've utilized kind of all those skills within, post-graduation employment, whether it was through marketing or I ran my own small market. I had a business where it was vintage clothes, handmade jewelry, some prints and little things like that. But the prints that I sold were very rarely sold, and also kind of more just a little add-on from the main business, which was kind of vintage clothes, handmade jewelry, things like that. And then I worked in marketing for 7 years, where it was mainly Photoshop, photographing products, writing content description, and I ended up absolutely hating it. And it was a bit of a I met my best friend there, and so that whole experience was totally worth it. But the actual workplace was quite a bit yucky, as I've heard that you have also experienced and are familiar with needing to exit strategy out of there. So and then so as I was kind of really discovering like how, unenthused about the particular work that I was doing. I was like, realized it was like quite digital. And so I started doing ceramics classes, like here on the Gold Coast and in Brisbane as well. And then just like reconnecting with like making with my hands and like the tactility of ceramics. I was just like, boom, like the world kind of like opened again. And I was just like really excited to start creating again once it was like with my hands, and I realized like how long I'd been missing that for from, you know, getting on that graphic design bandwagon. And it just kind of really all snowballed from there, because I just like head first went into like learning as much as I could and absorbing, immediately started like applying for exhibitions, and was lucky enough to like get a bit of traction with that, you know, pretty soon. Also just was like literally like applying for every opportunity I could. So while that's like, you know, not to say that there wasn't a heap of rejection, but like I was really playing the odds there by like applying for every single thing that I could. And I think kind of the journey from creative to artist, I was actually talking about this in a workshop at a school the other day, and how it actually took me a long time to define myself as an artist. And I would actually say that I let other people kind of define me as an artist before I was like maybe brave enough to take that title myself, which I actually think is like really kind of sad. I think that definitely you're the one that makes that choice. But so I would say it's only probably in the last like 3 or 4 years that I would have said like that I'm an artist.
Yeah, one of the things when I was in New York and I was getting mentored, they were like, you're an artist. You need to say that you're an artist when you meet people. They're like, don't like skim around it. Like, you're not this chick who like works in retail. Like, you're an artist. And so it was really, I remember like the first time I said it, I was like, I'm an artist. Like, you know
like
what I mean?
Shuddering.
Yeah. And people are like, who the fuck is this chick? But like, it just gets easier from there. I mean, I think the best thing about saying that you're an artist is that it's creativity. Like, everyone's creative.
Totally.
So it's not like you're saying you're a doctor and you're fraud for like not having a medical degree.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird that it was like such a hang up for us. But like, do you also think that that's like a little bit of a how do I describe this? Like, do you think that that's like a female tendency to kind of downplay yourself as well?
Yeah, I think it's also like imposter syndrome too. And I think that plays in a lot with being a woman and thinking, oh, like, you know, I can't be like the others. Like, you know, like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't, yeah. I mean, my story is like a lot different. When I left school, I didn't go to uni or anything like that. I was kind of told by my school. I went to girls' grammar in Brisbane too. So like, I did come from that good family and stuff. And I had no real direction with what I was going to do with my life. And my school was basically like, you need to just become a receptionist. And
what? Excuse me? That was their advice. Joking. Also, like, that's not even like really like inspirational for them. They're like, we're turning, like, not that being a receptionist is a bad job, but you don't need to like, do anything else to like become a receptionist.
Like, my best subject at school was art. Like, you know what I mean? And so my dad went to QCA and stuff, and my parents are divorced. So it was like, there was no like crossover communication with them. And it was just kind of like, oh, Maddie's a bit of a wild child. Like, you know what I mean? And so when I fell into doing art, it was like, oh, this makes sense. Like, you know.
Yeah.
So I really, really love your ceramics. I think they are so gorgeous.
Thank you.
I actually recently did a ceramics thing for my part-time work, and I had so much fun doing it because I hadn't done ceramics in like, God, like maybe like since I was like 5 or something. Since like,
did you get the bug? Did you get the bug?
I did. I loved ceramics. I was like, oh my gosh, but like, honestly, what's like the main thing that draws you to it? Like, I don't want to put you into that box of ceramics, but I want to talk about that for like a little bit. Like, what's your favorite thing about it? What do you love? Like, tell me everything.
Well, I think the thing I love about ceramics is the fact that there is like so many ways in which you can use the medium. So it isn't just hand building, it's wheel throwing, slip casting, using molds. I'm forgetting probably a million different scenarios here, but I think the fact that like there is a never ending kind of wealth of information or learning that you can do out there. Like even I would say like master potters, like I think they still, I think there's still so much more that they can learn. Do you know what I mean? There is so much in terms of like technique or process to learn or to try or experiment with, that you could spend your whole life making and creating and getting to know your particular clay body and your particular underglaze glazes, the combinations of them and your particular processes, and then still, have more to learn at the end of the day. I think it is the fact that even though I say, a focus on ceramics, that's so broad in itself. Like ceramics is just such a huge world. And even though I mean, I do prefer to work with hand built, but like I have, worked with slip cast or even like combining the two, hand built and slip cast mold making. And I'm not an illustrator. Like I tell people all this time because I think a lot of times people assume if you're an artist that you can draw, and I cannot draw. I cannot draw. Drawing is like a whole other thing. I love the second chances that you get with clay. You kind of, I don't know, just something about my brain. It like connects. Like I can make a 3D model easier than I can make a drawing of something. I think clay is malleable. It's, it's squishy. It's like, it gives you second chances when you're trying to push something into place rather than, drawing in pencils and having to rub it out, start again, rub it out, start again. Like, I think that process infuriates me rather than the process of pushing, pulling, squishing, manipulating. I really enjoy that process. It's really the same thing, like, kind of manipulating it to get your desired form, but I enjoy the tactility of that process rather than working 2D. I just think my brain seems to understand it more. Like I was did some workshops with Bonnie Hislop, who you've interviewed before, and she said to me, she's like, I think you're like a bit of a natural sculptor. Like I think you have this innate ability to kind of like see how things would be created. And I like just didn't really think too much of that. I was like, oh, Bonnie, you're so lovely. Like, of course you would say that. But like now, as I've progressed and I've also taught workshops as well, I can see, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like that actually is something. I have like chosen a medium or a process that is sort of in line with like natural abilities or skill. That's a really long answer for like why I like ceramics.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay, good. This is like another thing that I was saying in a workshop the other day. I think like that's, everybody starts ceramics and they feel that squishiness. They kind of like, they're all in. And I think is like, that's, once it goes through the kiln and once everyone has their first sort of ceramic heartbreak, which is like absolutely just an inevitable part of the process. Like I don't know a single ceramicist who hasn't experienced like some deep ceramic heartbreak, like something not coming out like you wanted to, or absolutely just getting annihilated in the kiln. And I think like that's kind of like the make or break as to whether people like continue with it. I think like people either choose the path of like, okay, well, I'm really into this. I'm going to reverse engineer how that happened. I'm going to learn how to do this better. Or people just get so like overwhelmed with the disappointment of like putting so many hours into something that just didn't come to fruition, which is fair enough. I think that is kind of like, that's where the fork in the road happens, where people either really continue down that path and they're all in and they need to like, really research their processes and mediums and learn all about the things that they're using so that they can like minimize the chance of that happening. Or they're just like, nah, screw this, I am out. I cannot handle this heartbreak.
Yeah, I hope all this other stuff fires well. What was your first heartbreak like? Were you like, fuck?
I've had actually so many. my very, very first one was not kiln related. I spent like so long on this piece. It was like this snake that was like it opened its mouth and it was like a vase. And I did all these like beautiful little like Memphis Milano kind of inspired patterns on it. And with underglaze, like you need to do 3 coats of everything. So I did 3 coats of all these tiny little colored patterns. And I'd taken it for firing, and then I was bringing it home, and it was nighttime, so it was a bit scary. So I was moving a bit too fast with this snake in the box, and I tripped up the stairs, and it just smashed into pieces. And it was like, it was supposed to be in an exhibition too. So I was like, that was my first ceramic heartbreak. And then I like also learned how to make things really, really quickly to try and replace that. So it was like a lot of lesson learning in there. But yeah, I've had so many. I've had, I've had other people, when I've like fired in community kilns, I've had other people's work explode and therefore explode mine. I've since then purchased my own kiln and have just not packed a kiln correctly because I was still learning, packed 2 pieces too close together and then nothing on the outside. And so they were hotter in the middle and they cracked down, and it was like, so many, so many. But like, I think, if you use this as a learning opportunity. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, now I know how to pack a kiln better because like this was not it. And, now I know when I'm carrying ceramics of like any sort, like we're moving slow, we're moving considered, we're not kind of taking any risks, which I'm like very much so normally that person that like does all the shopping in one trip. We used to be kind of very similar when I'd move about my work, and like ever since then I'm like, nope, 2 hands, we're moving this around the space slowly, we're watching every step, we're wearing non-slippy shoes, like all the above. I've many ceramic heartbreaks, even photographing a piece. I was like using a basket as the like where to like, it was on a cardboard paper, and I was using a basket to like line I don't know how to describe what I'm talking about, but like making a cardboard backdrop, and so it was like sitting up on the basket, and I blue tacked it there, and then I put the piece on the cardboard, photographed it, and then just like left it on the table, and then like later on went to go pick up the basket that was still blue tacked to that cardboard, and then like the piece just went like flying off, and that was like maybe about an hour before I had to send it off for an exhibition. But and it was a snake again. I was like, I feel like there's something here. But so many ceramic heartbreaks. But and I think that was another thing with ceramics was, learning what you kind of could repair, say like, because you either make functional work that needs to be like dinnerware, and it needs to be like food safe, and it needs to be like watertight and those things, or is it sculptural where maybe it's okay if you repair it with like epoxy putty and you're touching it up with acrylic paint kind of thing. Like I think that's where I kind of allowed myself the freedom to not be so like purist about the medium. And I also think like that also is just in line with, I don't want to, once you make something in ceramics and you fire it to the end piece, like that thing will last like forever. Like, so I want to be making things that are beautiful, and I don't want to be, just firing a whole bunch of work that's going to last forever. And so I think that kind of like helped me, like allowed myself to be a bit more multimedia with sculptural works as well.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about like in archaeology, if like in 5,500 years or whatever, they like dig it up. They're like, who is this? It says like Michelle Plastier on it.
Oh my gosh. I haven't thought too much about it. That's actually like a really good point. I'm horrific at signing my work. I'll like say there's some like future 10,000 year away like retrospective, I'll be anonymous because I absolutely forget to sign my work or like stamp my work all the time, and I'm just like, it's gonna have a didactic next to it, like as if that's gonna be there forever. I was like, it'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, there's some pieces that I'm just like, especially I did this project called, well, it was going to be 365 days of clay, and I was making a new piece. And then at like day 80, I was like, you are making like one piece a day just for the sake of it. You're firing these so they last forever. Is this really in line with like your ethics and your values? Most of these pieces, like, you're not even 100% sold on. So it turned into like 100 days of play. We're just gonna like wrap that up. But yeah, because it was just like 100 days of making something new, some of those pieces were just like a nipple, or something like really random. And those are the pieces I kind of think like, oh, this is going to last forever. And what happens when someone comes across this? They'll just be like why? Why?
Yeah, I've done one of those challenges before. Like at the beginning of the year, I was like, I'll do 100 collages. That's what will get me back into it after like a 2-year break and like sporadically doing it. And then I think I got up to like number 30 and I was like, man, I'm fucking over digital collage. Like, this was why
it burnt me out more.
Yeah, I was just like, fuck, man, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so then I was like, why don't I want to do it? And then it's just embarrassing. Like, don't go back on my Instagram. Don't look at that. Like,
I'm so curious. I'm so curious now.
I was like, nah, like, I'm all good. What was it like working with HOTA? And did you enjoy showing there? Tell us about that experience.
Oh, a dream. Absolutely a dream. Like, I did have connection with HOTA through, like, previously, just like I was part of the youth advisory group just before the gallery opened, worked there as an artist educator, casual, have been through the Art Keeper program. So I'd had connection with like a lot of the people that I was working with. So I already figured it would be like a pretty positive experience. But I did get to meet, some people that through all those other positions or jobs that I hadn't really had much to do with before. A lot of the collections team and the people who like actually do the installing. So that was beautiful. They are just so professional and they have a really good ethos of, making sure that they support artists both like, through the development of the work financially. They were great and they're really big on supporting Gold Coast artists as well. I really enjoyed my experience there, and the work is actually still on display until the end of March next year. So it's in that particular showcase for a year, which is awesome. I'll also be making some cups for the bar that it's in front of, the exhibitionist bar. So that will be like to complement the exhibition. And yeah, the bar, it was an awesome process because we also really were like collaborating with the bar. So, I was kind of explaining to them what I was going to be creating and ended up using some of my smaller pieces on maquettes that I made to figure out how to make some of the bigger pieces. We popped them on display inside the bar as well. So it's like a bit more of like an immersive exhibition. I can't talk highly enough about them, and I really urge everyone in Brisbane to like head on down to Home of the Arts, not just because my work is there, although that would be great if you could see it before March 2024. But there's like just always, they've got 3 levels of exhibitions that are like always free. They're like from the city collection or they're like a touring exhibition. And they've got the main exhibition space, which like toggles between like free or ticketed. But I just like I said, literally being born in Southport and, growing up on the Gold Coast, this is so massive for us. And it's like just so nice to have this. Like we had Keith Haring, Andy Warhol, Jean-Michel Basquiat, like 10 minutes from my house. Like that, yeah. And even a lot of the crew that work at Home of the Arts, like at HOTA, they all feel the same way, because this is their hometown and like it feels like, we're growing up, we're putting our big girl pants on, we're like doing really exciting things. So, I cannot speak highly enough of that. And I mean, this podcast will probably come out before this opportunity is over, but yeah, that Art Keeper program that I went through, they're doing a call out for that again now. And that also was like an incredible experience of like supporting Gold Coast artists, and again, definitely financially supporting Gold Coast artists, which is financially is what we're really looking for at the moment, because the cost of living be high.
The cost of living do be high. I'm just going to write down this HOTA thing so I can link it in the show notes. What was it called again? Sorry?
The program?
Yeah.
Yeah, Arts Keeper.
Arts Keeper.
Yeah.
Cute. Yeah, I'll put that down into the show notes.
Yeah. There's also a link there to Dopamine Days. So that's the work that I have on display at HOTA at the moment.
Nice. Well, next time I'm at HOTA, because I know that they're doing a touring of, I think, the Archibald Prize.
They just finished it.
Oh, did they just finish it?
They just finished it. Yeah.
My boyfriend wanted to go see it, and I was like, yeah, we'll get down there eventually. And then, of course, we didn't get down there.
The next one is going to be, it's like sneakers. I know so little about it, so I'm not going to talk about it because I'll just
That's
say
okay.
all the wrong things.
But they also have a website, so if you want to check out any of their stuff, check it out. Oh, that's so exciting. When I go back down to the Gold Coast soon.
Let me know. Hit me up. I'll give you the tour.
Oh my God, yes!
Yes.
I would love this.
Yeah.
And actually, my boyfriend would love this because he's a big arty, and he
Amazing.
he would just love that.
Yeah.
Like when I went to that Keith Haring one, the Mugabe collection or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just like, because this is going to sound real snobby, but I've seen like a lot of Andy Warhols and like Keith Harings and like all that shit. So when I was in there, I was like, and I've seen a lot of Basquiat's and stuff. And so when I was in there, I was like, oh yeah, this is like pretty much the same. And I like ended up being in there for like maybe 10 minutes and then going to the kids section and just like doing stuff.
No, well, I feel like you needed a tour. You needed to hear the story. You needed to hear the connection. You needed to hear the other artists that it like brought into the space. Like that's how I was introduced to Catherine Bernhardt. And have you seen her work before? Well, you would have seen, but like you might not remember it. But it was this it was like this big, I think it was like 6 meters. The painting was in there, and it was like Windex, and I think it was like toothpaste, and also her home she recently posted on Instagram lately, and it is like an 80s dream. It is like full of all this like Memphis Milano furniture, like all this vintage. It's just it's beautiful. Like you have to have a look. You have to have a look. But I think it was very much so highlighted that, you know, being the time of what that exhibition was, that, you know, it's a bit of a sausage fest in there, I think. So they tried to find a way to kind of bring female artists into that story, probably more in a contemporary manner, because that's when the female artists were getting recognized. But I think that was probably the least favorite thing about it, but that's also just by the nature of what the exhibition was, you know, a little tally of who was who in the 1980s and
Zoo. No, and it's just interestingly on that point that you're talking about with galleries and female representation, if anybody wants to like learn more about that, there is a really cool group called the Gorilla Girls, and they basically petition to have more chicks into the galleries, but that's like third wave feminism kind of stuff, which is kind of fun. A little bit of
I made a piece called Riot Girl that was like inspired by like, you know, obviously about Bikini Kill and like, but just what was going on at that time. And it was like this little it was a vase, but it was like this little punk zebra with like a mohawk and like a nose ring. And that one, it was one of the pieces that got accepted into the North Queensland Ceramic Awards. So it was, and then I just had like, when I was like chatting with the team, they were like, oh, this is like one of our favorite pieces. And I think it was like, you know, it was a fun piece, but it was more about that like concept behind it of like, you know, supporting women in the arts. And I think, and I have this discussion a lot with I know so many female artists, and you know, especially like with ceramics, and I have a friend that is a textile artist, our work so often gets like put into craft rather than art. And I'm sure with collage you've had a very similar experience of like, it sometimes gets labelled as craft rather than art, and it's really kind of sometimes difficult to navigate that narrative, I think, that other people are imposing on you.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like a big part of it was like in the beginning, before collage kind of had this like reemergence around like 2018, there were a lot of people were like, oh, collage, it's like the stuff you do in kindergarten and like all this other stuff. And I was like, yeah, but this is like a lot more complex than you'd ever think. Like, I don't know. And then I think since like digital collage has gotten so big as well, and you know, are they Gen Zers? Are we Gen Zers? I don't know what the millennials.
I'm like an elder millennial, so I'm definitely not Gen Z.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean, like the young kids. I don't know any of those terms, but the younger kids, like they all love that shit so much. So now it's kind of got this like new respect almost, being like, oh, it is actually really hard. But I mean, I don't think a kindergarten can spend the amount of money that I have on magazines. So, you know.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, like I wouldn't think that collage is well, it is for kindergartens, but not at that level. Like, no. We're talking like they're just putting coloured paper on top of coloured paper.
Yeah. But I definitely think it is getting more recognised as like a fine art and that sort of thing. And there have been like some really good artists who have done stuff like Dash Snow, who's now deceased, but like he used to do some really crazy shit with collage. He had an exhibition where like he like jizzed on his artwork and stuff before and chuck some glitter on it and like, you know, shit like that. You know.
Of course he would.
Yeah. I mean, he was like a skater, so it was like, you know, very like 90s heroin chic, like, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not jizzing on anything, but like very.
I mean, you can if you want. I mean, no. I think it would actually be cool if a woman did it. So.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have those capabilities. So it's like, you know. Okay, so are there any inspirations you have for creating art? Like any go-tos that you do, or any people that you like looking at, or like on Instagram or whatever?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm obviously very, very inspired by Memphis Milano, and you know, kind of even just like the fashion and artwork that were happening around the 80s and early 90s. I would say like just that time frame in general and the aesthetics around it is kind of like what I use as like a reference point, and like whether that's through like watching older movies or like looking through, like I have a couple of design books from like that era, and or whether it's from like TV artwork, or you know, I kind of like go, or even like going through Pinterest and looking at like vintage images. Are they vintage from the 80s and 90s? I think they are now. I don't know, but like looking at like just imagery from that time, and I think like I was very kind of unsure as to like why I was so drawn to that. Like obviously it's like childhood, but like I really like infusing that in my work. One, because like that whole aesthetic is just like really playful and joyful, but it's also like a really nice marker for me to put me in the work. It's like very much so of that time frame, of that aesthetic. So it's a little stamp of like this work is like through my lens. And I think also, I just think with my work, a lot of it is about that feeling of like when you kind of have the rug pulled from underneath you, like that first time you realize that the world is different than how you thought it was, like, you know, that moment that you realize, like, I guess like my first time was like, I realized like my mum wasn't right. Like the first time I realized my mum was like incorrect about something was just like mind-blowing, world-changing. Mm-hmm. What do you mean? Like, I don't understand. I guess like that's a lot of like what I'm making work about, because I'm making work about like through the lens of like your childhood, but like in terms of like reality. And, you know, so a lot of the work that I make is like 1980, but it's like referencing the future through the lens of 1980. So like what our expectations were in the 80s, which I think was like kind of optimistic and like hopeful, and we had this, like, it was like a real technology boom, and we were like, oh my God, the future's going to be like so cool. And like, and then like now that it's 2023 and we're kind of seeing how that trajectory has gone, like, how are we feeling? Like, I feel like a lot of us are thinking maybe we're like progressing too fast and we're not really like thinking things through. And there's all these like regressive symptoms and hangovers that come from this rapid progression, like, for instance, our like, what we were talking about before of like how we use our phone, how we consume technology, and our little fragmented attention spans from that, like Uber Eats, and how that is now like an increase in like pollution and consumption, so there's all these like things that are like great for us, but they also come with like this lot of baggage and a lot of regressive symptoms, and how they're like very much so like intrinsically intertwined, and it's not just as simple as like removing those symptoms. It's all kind of very intertwined. So yeah, a lot of the work that I make is about kind of realizing where we thought we were going in the 80s, where that's actually gotten us, and where do I think that that's going to take us into the future. So looking at the next 2080. So I very much so use the 80s and 90s aesthetics as a little bit of an in point, as everyone kind of has that like either nostalgic or familiar feeling when they view the objects that I'm making. But if they spend a little bit more time or like read the artwork statements about it, it's actually about like, for instance, I made this work called Foodomatic and the Pixel Printed Food, and it's about this like retro dot matrix printer that can print food in seconds. So retro object with futuristic abilities. At the food that it's printed, it's like pixelated, and there's misprints, and there's like microplastics in it, and it's like, talking about this like, rapid progression, but then there's all these little things that like we haven't quite sorted out yet as we're progressing so quickly.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Sorry, I was like literally just like thinking to myself, like, as you were saying all this, I was like, it all makes sense. I was like, technology boomed and we didn't fix our economic and like socio like issues and things like that. So everything just got worse.
We're just like, let's go. Like, progress. Like, let's not think too much about it. Let's just keep moving and keep moving quickly.
Oh my gosh. That's really like, it's kind of heavy though. I like it.
Yeah, that's why it's packaged in cute candy colors.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I try to make it so that like the work is accessible on like many levels, because I don't want it to can't also just enjoy it for like the aesthetic value as well. Like, I think there's enough value in the technique and the craft that it took to make the pieces as well. But like, there's also like messaging there if you're willing to look for it.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. You're so sweet. It's like, I don't know, like never read any of your artist statements. So to know that, I'm just like, wow. It makes me think. I always reach this point of the podcast where my brain is just like overloaded, and I'm like thinking so quickly that I can't catch up to my thoughts.
Oh my God, I actually have like 30 questions and 30 sentences in my head at the same time, and they're just like
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about so much different stuff, because it's just like, I don't think people really take, because I mean, like, I think a lot of people look at like old ceramics. Like, I was at Quag on the weekend. My boyfriend hates I call it Quag, but Queensland Art Gallery, and Quag. And anyway, I was at Quag, and sorry, I love saying it. And they have like all those old ceramics from like the 16th, century and 17th century, and it's like, yes, it is just like a plate, but it has like a scene on it, which is like very indicative of like that time. And then you think about like other ceramics that are made today and like the stories that they tell. And it's just, I think it's just so dope. It's like so different.
Yeah. It's like, and I guess like when we think of what we're making today, we're like, oh, we're so modern, we can't imagine anything different. And like, but then you're like, well, that's what they thought when they made these like plates and these like things that we're looking at today. Like, that was like, oh, we're using this new special technique, or we've just developed like firing, or like whatever it is. Like, everything is going to be like a little time capsule. And I wonder if my time capsule will be confusing as well, because it's like referencing the past. But then I guess like it depends in perspective as like when this is being, dug up. Because if this is being dug up in like, 10,000 years, then like the difference between 80s and 2023 is like going to be quite small. It's all going to be considered the same time frame.
Yeah.
It's always interesting.
Maybe they would just be like, is this from the 80s?
Yeah, totally. They just like assume, especially because, like I said, I never like sign or date anything. So it's just like,
you got to start signing and dating stuff, Michelle. Like that's the one thing my dad's told me. He's like, you always got to sign and date.
Yeah, I know. I do. I really do. I'm not like averse to it. I just like I feel like I'm just always doing things last minute. I'm always doing things rushed. So like I'm always just so happy to like put that last coat of glaze on. I'm like, done. But I just like, I don't know, I forget. But yeah, you're right, I do. Even if I like write it in Nico or something afterwards, like an afterthought, like whatever it is, just get my name or initials on there.
Yeah, just like scratch that shit in.
Find a way. Find a way. You're right.
So do you have any advice for other artists?
Yes. Oh my God. I totally do. And I would say my biggest, hugest piece of advice is like, be part of your community, find your community, like be involved, because like, so there's so many people that like, and this is like also, relative to ability as well, because I mean, like even with ability, there's normally some way, even like we were talking about through social media, to be involved in your community, whether it's just through engaging with other artists, like chatting with other people, but if you can, like show up to other people's events, show up to exhibitions, show up to workshops, be part of your community, learn who's in your community, learn what artwork they're making, learn what's important to them, because I think like you only ever get back from your community what you put in. And, that is the biggest hurdle that I find with people who aren't making it or aren't getting work out there like they wanted to. They're kind of creating in this vacuum and they're not really aware of like what's going on around them. And I just think, it's just like it's a super positive experience to go out and be like mingling and meeting new people that have interests that are similar to yours, and also like expanding your world in terms of like concepts and working with people that maybe have interests that are very dissimilar to yours. I think that's even more interesting. Like the amount of appreciation that I have for different art forms just from knowing other people making different work is like, I feel like my whole like interest in art just like expanded immensely just from being part of the community. But you also get out there, and while you're talking to other people about what they want to make and what they're doing, and you're sharing what you're making and what you're doing, you never know who's going to have that opportunity for you, whether it's through them personally or they're going to talk to someone that's looking for something that you're already doing and you'll be top of mind. Like and even just getting to know people on like a personal level, and they can vouch for you to say that you're like a person who'll show up when you say that you're going to show up. As much as you don't want it to be like it's a who you know scenario, it really is. It's how it works. And I'd absolutely say that that's like, be part of your community and be engaged is like the best advice. Obviously make good work. That's like a huge part of it. But I'm assuming this person, whoever we're talking to, is an artist that's making good work. Yeah. Get out there, get into your community, show up to events, and support the people that you want to support you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that one. I always just say, just be nice, and if you're not going to be nice, just fucking stay home.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't take a bad attitude out there.
Yeah, and just don't be a fucking dick. And do you have anything interesting coming up for you in your art? You said that you had the HOTA thing on until March of next year, but is there anything else? And you mentioned something at the beginning as well.
Oh, was it the archway that I'm making? Or I can't remember. But I do have something that I would like to promote, which I'm not sure whether this will come out prior to, or maybe you can just look at photos of if it comes out afterwards. But the exhibition that I'm curating at my space in Surface, so it's called Just for Fun, and it's an exhibition that will be happening on December 9th. It will be a one-day only exhibition, and it is at 10 Beach Road in Surface Paradise at 3 of 3 Studio, Saturday nights from 2 to 6 p.m. So there's over 30 artists, some of them interstate, most of them local, and I think it will just be a nice kind of mix of genre and practice, and most of them I know quite well and personally, but I can vouch for everyone that their artwork is incredible. So it'll be a jam-packed kind of salon hang. It's a very small space, but like I said, I just had this space that had been funded by council, and I wanted to find a way to share it with the most people possible. So I'm going to have the wild experience of trying to curate over 30 artworks to look semi-decent in a very small space, but I think it will be great.
The episode was recorded on Yuggera and Turrbal land. Sovereignty was never ceded. The episode was produced by myself, Madeline Butini, and if you would like to support 1-800-MAD-BUTT, you can head to my website, madbutt.com.au, or you can also go to our Instagram and follow us there. Of course, we appreciate any reviews, so please leave us one if you love it. And yeah, hope to see you again. Thank you.
If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again.